Welcome, everybody. Really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your afternoon to come and join us. Let's give people just a few more minutes to log in, and we'll get started at approximately 2 after the hour. All right, for those of you who are keep logging in, happy to have you joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time. We're just giving everybody a few minutes to get logged in and started before we kick off our presentation in approximately 1 minute. All right. I think we could probably start getting this rolling, and we'll let some of the last minute joiners start as I'm doing my intro here. But hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our webinar, Accelerate Revenue with AI-Driven CRM. My name is Josette, the Director of Marketing here at Fay, and I'm excited to kick off today's event. Before we get started, let's just cover a few quick housekeeping items. At the end of the session, we'll conduct a short Q&A. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the questions or the chat window, and we'll address them in the order that they're received at the end of the presentation. Any questions that we don't have time for during the live broadcast, we'll be sure to address them after the presentation via email or a quick chat. We have two great speakers lined up for you today. Zach Sprackett is the Chief Technology Officer at SugarCRM, where he leads the integration of AI, enhances technological capabilities, and optimizes user experience. He has almost 30 years of experience in engineering, product management, and technology leadership. Before becoming CTO, Zach was Chief Product Officer, driving product vision and strategy. Originally from Ottawa, he now lives in Santa Cruz, California with his wife and dog. He enjoys photography, videography, and DJing in his spare time. In addition to Zach, we also have Dan Havermount, who is the VP of Sales and Partnerships at Fay, where he leads all global to-market motions as well as growth of our 600 plus customers. Before coming to Fay, Dan held roles at SugarCRM and Oracle, where he had a decade and a half of experience in direct sales roles, pre-sales, and sales leadership. Originally from Maryland, he now lives in San Juan, Puerto Rico, with his wife of 1 month and 2 dogs, Penny and Brisket. When he isn't working with clients, he enjoys surfing, mountain biking, and perfecting his grandma recipes in his spare time. With that said, I'll turn it over to Dan.
Thanks, Josette. Really appreciate it. Nice to meet everyone today. I just want to quickly go over just kind of who we are and a little bit about Fay in general. This is just kind of our tagline. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but what it really means is we take on our clients' toughest problems and technological challenges for them. And that often includes making sense of this really broad reaching impact of AI. And I think one of the reasons why our clients find our perspective useful is that we also are partners with a lot of other top CRM and CX providers who are all approaching this in a little bit different way. And we also work in a lot of very highly regulated environments. So we make sure we're implementing these technologies in a way that doesn't get you in trouble with your CIO or CTO. Next slide, Josette. Great. So this is kind of the entire customer journey that we at Fay work with. And AI has now kind of permutated all of the different areas of the customer journey. It's really kind of started out in the kind of CX and customer support. And that's where we've seen over the last 5 to even 10 years, a lot of the use of AI. I'm sure a lot of you all have gone to a website before and seen a chat bot or some form of AI that you've interacted with from a customer perspective. But now, for me personally, it's really exciting, as someone who's been a career salesperson and now a sales leader, folks focusing solutions on actually assisting salespeople and their leadership on challenges that they face in their everyday. So this is just, some of the things that I think are really driving change as part of this, the awareness of AI, especially because of technologies like ChatGPT and Google and things like that that have come out. Now individual users are also starting to have a much better understanding of AI tools and how they can help them in their everyday job. And leaders are starting to get a better understanding of how AI can help move the business forward. So I have some stats up there that just show things like over 3/4 of CRM users find that AI is helpful in a sales capacity, and almost half of them find it extremely important. I'm curious, for those of you in the crowd today, what your users kind of think of, what their perception of AI is, and the impact that it can have. So feel free to answer any of that in the chat there. So we put this up here, not to put, fear into anyone or anything like that, but there are some, fairly substantial risks that we take by not adapting some of the technologies like this that are coming out. One of the things obviously that happened the last few years, we've just realized how quickly things can change in a business landscape with things like the pandemic. And if we're not able to react to those changes and really change and adapt our business, we can fall behind to those companies that are making those changes quickly. And as we saw, things can change almost overnight. So being able to help predict some of those trends and move the business forward can be really important for things like that. I'm not going to go over each one of these things in detail, but one of the things that I think oftentimes is overlooked is, from an operational standpoint, not only if we're not adopting some of these technologies, are we hampering the inefficiencies of the sales team, which are often fairly expensive resources that we have, but if we're not giving them the tools to be effective in their job and highly efficient, we risk the chance of them actually leaving and going to a company that does give them the opportunity to take advantage of those tools, as we're seeing with Apple now embedding AI into iPhone experiences and Android into that. It is a ubiquitous part of life that everyone is going to start to be expecting moving forward. And we're seeing that on the business user landscape as well, that it's going to be a thing that folks are expecting us to have as the applications they're working with in their everyday life.
Yeah, and I mean, at Sugar, we've really been building towards this sort of future of intelligence everywhere for a number of years at this point in time. It started kind of with probably about 5 or 6 years ago with our push for capturing all of the time series information that's happening inside of everybody's CRM, being able to kind of identify those changes that are occurring over time and model those out in terms of your business. And of course, on top of that, we've been able to layer on top the cloud services, the workflow automation, all of the things that you expect from a CRM platform and a CRM vendor. But what is more exciting is kind of the AI layer that we've been able to build on top of that leverages all of those platform services, that leverages our analytics capabilities, and is able to sort of provide and deliver AI value throughout the entirety of the platform in support of each of the applications that kind of make up all of that suite. So that I think the key message, or the core message that I want to send here, is this is a journey that we have been on for a number of years, and we're really excited about kind of where we're at now from a technology perspective, because we're able to take advantage of all of these building blocks that we've been able to put in place, almost kind of playing chess in this. And it's just such an exciting time to see all of this kind of come together. Next slide, please.
Yeah. So when it comes to audience segmentation, Zach, I know this is one thing that I personally, as a sales leader, deal with all the time. And I'm curious of, again, folks in the crowd, if you have to, again, segment your business by various industries or revenue bands or employee sizes, and for folks like us are looking for trends and how we're working with those different groups and how we can kind of be more effective in them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is something that all of us are up against in our business, right? We're all trying to identify trends. We're all looking at things, through different segments. And frankly, this is a real challenge for people, right? Dan, yourself, you mentioned that you've kind of looked at that. Have you ever tried to pull that information together? You ended up in a spreadsheet, or maybe down the path of trying to build out a data warehouse. Not an easy sort of journey for you, right?
No, especially as, a business user, right? Like having to pull from multiple different systems and coalesce that data is a challenge. And especially doing it as fast as the business is, shifting and things around us too, can be really hard.
Yeah, and that's an important part of what we've been trying to do at Sugar. With our tooling, we make that time-based analytics a lot easier to surface into the business. In fact, in a lot of ways, we kind of make it automatic, embedded directly in Sugar. So, the CRM-based analysis of industries over time, or time cycle to win within a particular industry is all stuff that is kind of available today directly within the product. And this is critical for helping businesses to adopt technology, but helping users within those businesses to essentially be successful. I mean, we all on a regular basis are kind of splitting up our business into different categories or looking at things from an industry perspective. I mean, we personally, even at SugarCRM, are always looking at those individual segments within our business and how they perform. And it's great that we're able to use our own products for exactly this purpose, to be able to drill in and see, in the manufacturing industry, for example, what does our win rate look like and how has that changed over time?
Yeah, so I know from a forecasting perspective, another thing that I often run into is, I go to bed on a Friday, everything seems great, and wake up Monday morning, and there's just been substantial changes. And I think everyone always has that, one AE that's late to put in their opportunities or to change something before you start, and you wake up Monday morning, and things are way different than where you remember them the last week. Zach, what has Sugar, been doing to kind of help folks like me address that problem?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that stuff is absolutely ulcer inducing. You come in on a Monday morning and things do not look like they did on that Friday. Can we just advance the slide, please? So one of the things that we've been able to do is to add in a waterfall view that allows you to take a look at your pipeline and see exactly how it's changed over time, which is really cool. You can see kind of what's moved in, what's moved out, what was closed lost, what was closed won. And that's incredibly useful information, right? We all want to understand how things are changing over time. But you as a sales leader, when you come in and you're looking at that book, what you really care about is actually that high level sort of summary information. But then you also want to be able to click and go a layer deeper. And in fact, we're able to deliver that with the advanced forecasting capability. If you want to just advance, please. And you can drill right into all of the particular deals that actually make up that segment. And what's really cool is you can see the ones that were brought in. You can see the ones that were brought out in an entirety. And that's useful information. Sometimes a deal maybe gets closed lost or maybe a deal slips. But also you have the ability at an individual deal level to see how that deal has changed. So, did it grow over the course of the weekend? Did it shrink? Where did those dollars go? You can have so many more intelligent conversations with your reps because of the fact that all of this information is there and automatically captured into the system. And it's all available to you as a leader with just a single click, which is incredible. It's amazing how challenging this kind of stuff can still be with business software today.
Yeah, and just to echo that again, it's a huge challenge as a sales leader when your executive team asks you to, well, hey, it looks like, our pipeline is the same as it was last week. But in reality, 10 of the opportunities may have shifted out of the quarter. We may have closed 10 and lost 10. So it really doesn't paint the full picture unless you can actually drill into this data and say, hey, actually, we're still doing really well. We just pushed out 10 of those opportunities to the next month. They're still all going to close. I was able to see that, have the discussions with the reps about those so I can have, again, an intelligent conversation with the leadership team as well.
Yeah, I mean, it goes both ways. It's incredibly important. And that use case of, no one deal actually moved, but maybe all of your deals were adjusted in a smaller way, whether that's up or down, right? Being able to understand that's incredibly useful as well. So yeah, we're really excited about what we have here.
It's great. And then when it comes to pipeline management, some folks like us too have tons of different products, and then within those products lines, different offerings and SKUs and things like that. And oftentimes have customers transacting a fairly high volume that can range from, small dollar amounts up through larger ones, depending on the customer size, and kind of differentiating between that and understanding what a customer is actually doing with our business. It can be a challenge. I'm curious, how Sugar's been helping folks with that, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, this is an area that we're really excited about. We just acquired this company that we've been partners with for a number of years now by the name of SalesEye. And SalesEye brings some incredibly useful tools to the toolbox. It allows us to integrate with essentially almost any ERP that's out there today. We have connectors into over 180 different ERPs. And be able to instantly sort of pull all of that insight that is traditionally locked up inside of that ERP or accounting or finance data and turn that into valuable tools that can be used by the sales organization when they're actually interacting with customers. That's the kind of stuff that tells you about strategies to increase revenue, about how to improve your customer satisfaction, about what products that customers are actually already buying, or maybe products that they should be buying as well. If we could just advance the slide, please. SalesEye is really about empowering the sales rep. It's designed to make sure that when they are interacting with customers, they have all of the information they need in order to build those customer relationships directly. And the cool thing is that it also provides a direct benefit to those customers as well in terms of being able to see insights into how they're spending money with your business and how that potentially compares to some of the other customers. So SalesEye can generate basically reports that you can sit down and you could have in front of your customers, in a quarterly business review or that kind of scenario. And it also helps your seller to understand like what products maybe that customer actually could need that they're not making use of today. If we could just advance once more, please. There's kind of three core pillars of SalesEye that are important. The first is the idea of modeling the data. So, we're able to put this product in at the customer site, and it connects into the ERP, and it seamlessly brings all of that useful information that exists in ERP data into Sugar. And from there, we're able to apply AI and ML technology in order to identify all of the different relationships between the different products and the different purchases and historical information that exists within your business, and understand a lot more cool insight about your customers. We can use those models to identify upsell opportunities, to identify cross-sell opportunities, and to highlight different kind of churn risks. And these are things like, maybe I'm selling into the restaurant industry and I've got a customer who is buying eggs and bacon, but it turns out that they're not buying bread from us. They're maybe buying bread from a different supplier. There's a huge opportunity for me to go in there and to highlight that, hey, other customers are buying this from me. We have, a particularly good relationship with our baked goods vendor, and we're able to get some great deals. You can have an intelligent conversation and do it in a place that the salesperson might otherwise miss. And within all of our businesses, Dan, I feel like we have people who are kind of at different skill levels, right? We have sort of the people who have been around for a ton of time who maybe know all the ins and outs of the business, and they feel like they can just sort of divine this stuff themselves. They can see the matrix letters coming down their screen, right? And they can identify exactly what needs to happen. But the truth is, we've got a whole bunch of people who are also entering the industry as well. And how do you sort of narrow the gap between your top performers and those younger people who are hungry and interested and want to go out there and do a really good job for the business? SalesEye can really help in order to achieve exactly that kind of thing. Transforming CRM from kind of a tool that is for managers into something that the sales rep really wants to use because it helps them to actually achieve those better business outcomes that they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And not even just that someone might be newer to the industry, but someone might have had a customer book for 10 years. They know those customers, their buying cycles in and out, when they're seasonal, when they're not. So even if someone who maybe have come from the industry, but just doesn't know their customer base as well yet, they're still coming up to speed. This can really help draw out insights so they know where to spend their time early on, and they're not hunting and pecking around or hitting up your IT department for random reports out of your ERP.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the key things I think about adoption and just providing tools that are useful to people is you really need to think about that equation between effort and value or outcomes on the other side of it, right? You want to deliver as much value, as much outcome related stuff to that end user as possible, and you want to require as little effort as possible for them to get there. And I think SalesEye really hits both sides of that equation. you're basically pointing at existing data or existing transactional information that exists within your business today already in your ERP or your finance software. And boom, you're able to turn that into insights that informs those conversations that the sellers are able to be to have without the seller having to do anything. They don't need to enter any data. They don't need to do any reporting. They don't need to go and try and fetch anything. It's all just there and harnessed for them automatically, which I think is absolutely amazing from a value to effort perspective.
100%.
Now, one of the things that I'd like to highlight that I think makes Sugar really different is we put a lot of thought into this platform architecture for kind of delivering AI into our customer base. Dan, I know you've worked with a bunch of customers already who are adopting AI, and you probably run into some of the customers whose CIOs or IT departments might be maybe a little bit concerned about, like, how do I do this in a way that's responsible, or how do I do this in a way that my data remains my data, and I'm not using it to train a model that my competitors are going to be using, right?
100%. I mean, I think that's like the two biggest things we hear when we talk to business users is one is, the leadership or the board is saying, hey, you have to do something with AI. And then from the groundswell, from the ground up, they're getting tools sent to them by every individual and sales user that I found this online for $5 a month or $50 a month that I can use personally. So they're kind of getting pushed from both directions. And they're obviously really concerned with just letting anyone and everyone go out and purchase their own AI solutions. But they know that they need to develop a strategy that's going to be sound for their business. So working with folks that already have a sound data model in place and are really adherent to security is really important for, again, pleasing users on the adoption side, but also making sure that we're safe from a business perspective as well.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think you have to balance both sides of those equations because, as you kind of highlighted at the beginning, if companies are not providing these tools to their users are going to go out and find these tools themselves. And that is going to put you at risk because your data is going to end up in all kinds of different places that you don't have control over. And so when we were approaching how do we deliver AI effectively across the Sugar platform, we knew right away we wanted to build a trust framework that would allow you to take advantage of the technology to deliver that value to your users, but still make sure that you had your arms around and your control around the data, and that your data remains your data, and it's not something that's used to train models that then your competitors are going to be able to use. And we kind of did that using a 5-layer model. The first layer is this idea of grounding, and this is being able to gather all of the information that exists around Sugar, whether that's in emails or calls or meetings, all the different places that kind of data exists around Sugar, and pulling that together in the way that we're able to build a prompt for large language models that has all of the information or all of the relevant context that we need in order to build out a solid answer to your query. The second layer is this idea of masking. And this is where I think things get really interesting. That query that you might be building probably contains some personally identifiable information, or maybe some information that you wouldn't want to go over to a large language model. We're actually able to leverage technology to mask all of that out with kind of analogous information so that we're not sending something over to a model that contains a whole bunch of PII or stuff that you're concerned with. We then have a large language model proxy layer, which we're really excited about because that's going to enable us to plug in different large language models in the future on a use case specific way. So if there's one model that maybe excels at the particular problem in marketing automation, we can apply that model for that use case and use a completely different model for something else. And this could even extend to the fact that, like, in a future state, even our own businesses might have our own large language models that we want to bring to the equation as well. And so we've sort of thought about that in the architecture that we built. We then have a moderation layer where once we've sent stuff over to the large language model and it comes back with an answer, we want to take a look at it and see, does that answer actually make sense? Is it maybe a toxic result or something that we wouldn't want to send to our user base? Are there things that are obviously factually incorrect? And we built a layer here to help us to kind of moderate those responses that come back from the large language model so that we're able to do a layer of checking before we put them in front of the user. And then we finally tie it all together with our audit layer. which is where we track the usage and are able to connect it to the end user outcomes. And this is really cool because it enables compliance and it enables us to really measure the value that our solutions are able to deliver to our customers. And obviously, and probably most importantly at this stage, is it enables us to kind of continuously improve as we're building new versions of the software and as we're delivering new capabilities to our customers. We can use this audit layer to make sure that we're actually delivering the value that we intend to deliver. So this trust framework that we've built out, we're really excited about because it's kind of our vehicle to ensure that your data remains your data, and that it's private, it's secure, and then you're still able to take advantage of all of this technology in a way that your IT departments can be comfortable with.
Yeah, and I think that's perfect building in on the, on the generative side, because I think one of the biggest benefits, for those of you that have used a lot of the generative AI tools is the ability to take large sums of information and get to a specific answer really quickly or summarize a large swath of information. And I think that's always been an issue on the CRM side is that, us as sales folks or sales leaders, especially in accounts that may have 5 executives, a salesperson, consultants, all interacting with a number of people on the customer side as well. Even if you have all that data stored in a way that's easily accessible, it's still a massive amount of interactions when you think about calls and emails and texts and things like that that are going through. So how is Sugar, using what you just described and that whole layer there to kind of address some of the interactions that we're seeing and help folks get to the bottom of that quickly, Zach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, look, that problem of data is, and how do I make use of it is such an interesting one. As an industry, right, you've probably heard us talk about this idea of the 360-degree view. We've been talking about that for years. If it just had a 360-degree view of my customer, all of my problems would be solved. But the reality is, like, nobody actually needs that 360-degree view. Every user that's going to interact with a customer, they have maybe their 15 to 30 degrees that are really relevant and really important to them. And so how do you get them just the information that they need in order to have that intelligent conversation and in order to sit down without forcing them to sift through all of those other degrees that maybe are not relevant for the conversation that they're about to have? So if we could just go forward a slide. We've been able to actually add in AI to opportunities that go and scour every bit of related information that exists inside of Sugar and tell you exactly what's going on in a particular deal. This is things like who's involved, right? Like, well, who are all the people that you're talking to within this deal, whether you're talking to them on the phone, whether you're talking to them in email, how are they involved with the deal? It also is able to go through all of the, the various transcripts, the meeting notes, all of the different things that are uploaded into Sugar and identify what is the intent of the customer or the buyer in that particular opportunity. Are things trending towards a successful purchase? Are they, are they skeptical of what you're offering them? And it provides you with a really nice summary of all of the activity that's kind of occurred so far. If you just bounce forward a little bit, it's also able to go kind of beyond today. It prompts the user with, in this case, the seller, with suggested next steps. The cool thing is the sellers that we worked with while we were actually building this out have told us that these suggestions are really good. They've been able to highlight things that were opportunities that maybe the seller had otherwise missed. And they've also been able to identify strategies for interacting with the customer that the seller had not considered previously, which I think is absolute gold, right? If you could tell me something as a seller that is new that I had not considered, that's going to increase the likelihood that I'm going to be successful with this particular customer, you've helped me, right? You've actually materially improved my outlook on life. And that's the kind of experience that Sugar wants to deliver into our customer base, right? This is incredibly important stuff.
I think this is awesome. And I think, look, I think a lot of salespeople too, Zach, is like the good ones really, they will collect all this information, maybe for their largest, their most important opportunities. But if you're working a lot of different opportunities over a large period of time, or maybe customers gone dark, keeping track of all of this and the communication that's happened is really challenging. So having some of that done for you, I think really helps accelerate that too. And I think for me, for someone who has folks on our team that are, constantly having to kind of battle of keeping up to date with everything that's happening across a large number of opportunities, giving them this time back in their day is amazing.
Yeah, and it all comes back to building blocks, right? Like I sort of started this presentation off, or talking my part of the talk off, about talking how kind of we've been building towards this for a number of years. But one of the things that I think is really important here is all of this is about taking information at the point that it's created, getting it into Sugar in an automated way, and then turning it into something that's valuable. So tools like even Sugar Connect, right, that connect into your email and can have filter rules that sort of automatically pull things in and automatically archive that into Sugar, has access to your calendar and can set up all of those meetings and ensure that all of that is kind of flowing back seamlessly into Sugar, mean that without you, the seller, actually having to summarize anything for yourself or for your manager, when you go in and you take a look at this summary, it's got active, up-to-date information that is aware of all of the different communications that have happened without anybody having to do anything to achieve that value. Again, that's huge, right? Just that ability to get something without having to put in effort on the other side of it, I think is a critical piece of what we're trying to build. And we've also been able to apply this same technology onto cases as well. At Sugar, for example, we regularly have cross-functional leadership meetings where we're sitting down and we're looking at customer situations. When we do that, we often have some debates internally, like, what is the customer experiencing? How do they feel about this particular case or this particular issue that they're working on? And those kinds of debates internally have kind of driven a lot of effort in trying to figure that kind of stuff out. We don't have to do that anymore. When we have those conversations now, we turn to our own technology and we actually are able to look at what the customer summary is telling us about this particular issue. And the sentiment that is being expressed directly by the customer automatically is highlighted in the particular case summary, which is super, super useful. It gets us to the solution a lot faster. It also tells us, what are the different things that we've tried to date? What are some of the things that we can try in the future to help to address the needs of this particular customer? And I think these kinds of capabilities are rocket fuel for adoption, right? Once you actually can get to a point where you are showing that value, giving users more than what they put into the system, it's a huge incentive for them to really use the system on a daily basis. It's pushing them into it because they get value out, and it's sort of reinforcing the value of getting information in using tools like Connect and Sugar Mobile, so that all of the different touch points that you're having with the customer are recorded in Sugar, because you can then turn that immediately into value. And my favorite part about this, like, I hope it's coming across how excited about this stuff I am. I use it on a daily basis inside of our business. But my favorite part is that you actually don't even need to take my word for it. We've got a recording from a customer who's using this, who is part of our program that sort of built this out, went through in our pilot program. And the experiences that he had were absolutely amazing. So I'd love to just show you all this.
Very positive. In 20 years of working with CRMs, this is finally, I think, the tool that's been needed to increase adoption and turn a CRM into that tool it's always wanted to be. People have always struggled to find value in the CRM. This is going to give them that value they're looking for, because now you don't have to sift through piles and piles of data. AI will go in there, find the relevant information for your customer, good, bad, or indifferent, and present it to you for your review and actions. When we started this project, initially it started just in the opportunities module, which was fine because we'd had opportunities set up within a couple of our divisions and we're using that. It got a little challenging with that because not everybody recorded their activity on that. So we started to see the value in what AI could do. And then it expanded into cases. And at the time, we weren't a heavy user of cases because of our business model. Our customer support doesn't work like that. But what we did is we reimagined cases into what we call roadblocks. So we started piling our roadblocks into there of things that were preventing customers from, using our services. So then once we started putting all that together, that was starting to bring value. And then the last piece is we started testing something at the account level. Everything's really starting to come together because they brought some custom modules into it that we had, started tying our income data into it. And this last set of results on it were nothing but amazing. So where this goes from here will be really exciting over the next 6 months because it's turning into something like I've never seen.
Love that. Absolutely love that. If you can just move forward, please. Yeah, I mean, look, I've been in this industry for a long time. You've been in this industry for a long time. My favorite thing about this is that we're finally at a point where technology is able to really deliver that insight, that value behind all of the data that we've kind of been building up as businesses over the course of the years, in a responsible and mature way. And these kinds of features, these kinds of capabilities, from my perspective, they just kind of sell themselves, right? They're the kind of thing that users are going to be demanding going forward. Once they experience it, once they see the value on the other side of it, it really is something that I think is like rocket fuel for your business.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Zach. And I think it's inherently intuitive and helpful to get presented information. I think one of the reasons why we all use Google every day and these other things is we basically have to provide a very little amount of input to get a massive amount of output, right? So from an individual user perspective or a management perspective, being able to come in and just do a quick search or a single click and be provided with a ton of information that's happened over the course of a week or a month is huge, not only from a time-saving perspective, just from a value perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things I think is really interesting is, some of the early things that were available from an AI perspective, like the predictive modeling and that kind of stuff. There was always this threshold of, hey, your business needs to have enough data in order to even be able to play this game of making predictions about the future. But a lot of the technologies that are now available and that we're able to bring to market inside of Sugar, whether it's the sales eye technology or our generative capabilities, they can give you value right away without having to go out and invest in, curating a whole bunch of new data or, starting today so that a year down the road, you're going to be able to get value. This is stuff that on day one can actually sort of change that equation and instantly start to deliver, hey, there's use here that really drives that sort of engagement with your sales team. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, and from a sales leadership perspective, again, I'm always looking for things that are gonna, again, take a small lift to get a lot of value, right? With a system that my folks are already using, they're in every single day. They don't have to take a ton of heavy training. Obviously, it takes a little bit to understand and make use of the insights, but I'm not going to have to go through a 6-month implementation, get new tools or integrate them to do things. They're able to really start deriving that value from day one in, again, the same type of modules and things that they're used to being in their everyday lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is why we're here. And with that, Dan, I think you have something special that you're going to be able to offer some of your customers who are on the phone call today.
We do. If you want to go to the next, yeah, perfect. So we've actually partnered with Zach and the Sugar team for everyone here. And what we're offering is a free 1-month trial of leveraging everything we just saw today from the generative capabilities for those that are using opportunities and cases. And we're going to be able to kind of sit there and go through with you all and show you again how we've been deriving value in our business and how your users can start to use that from day one and kind of go through some coaching sessions and show how that can be done. So this, again, is no cost to everyone else. We really do feel like once folks get this in their hands, they're going to feel like it's an invaluable part of their day to kind of move forward with too. It's pretty easy to activate. You're just going to sign up for the form that we have down at the bottom here. And then your Sugar representative from Faye will reach out to you, start to get things set up in your system and meet with you regularly as part of that.
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity. It's really exciting that you've been able to kind of bring this to your customers because, we're all struggling on a daily basis to try and do as much as we can with the limited resources. We want to maximize the potential of our businesses, and I think this is a great way of helping your customers to be able to maximize their potential.
Agreed.
And for everybody on this call, you will be getting an email directly after the session with a sign-up link so you can easily activate your free 30-day trial. All right, so that brings us to the Q&A portion of our presentation today. I saw that we had a few questions that have come through the Q&A questions box. As a reminder, if you have any questions for our speakers, please type them into the questions bar. So let's start with some of the questions that have come through during the presentation. Number one, what's the best way to integrate AI into our existing CRM without disrupting current workflows?
I can take that from my perspective first. Again, because we have salespeople that we want focusing on selling, anytime that we take away from that for training and other things is just taking away from that selling time. So having something that's already pre-integrated into their everyday workflows, from my perspective, really helps with disruption and just taking away from selling time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the idea of having those features pre-integrated into the product and just being able to take advantage of them, I think is huge. I also would go back to that idea of not wanting to build it alone and wanting to be able to keep those guardrails or your arms around all of your information. I think the best place for that to happen is to be brought to you from the vendor itself. And that's one of the things that we take incredibly seriously at Sugar. We're trying to make it so that the technology is easily accessible to you, and your users don't have to necessarily be technologists in order to do it. Right? We don't want to create an army of people who have to understand AI in order to take advantage of AI. We as a vendor want to be able to provide you with those solutions that answer the questions, that deliver the value, and help you achieve those outcomes that you're trying to achieve.
Great. Second question, are there any features that are particularly useful to a high sales environment where there are customers purchasing a large number of different products?
I think we touched on that earlier. The Sales Eye acquisition by Sugar was great for customers that have tons and tons of transactions, maybe that are not all being done by the same person or by large swaths of different SKUs or product lines, and just making sense of all those transactions, especially over a given period of time when you may have seasonal buyers and things like that too.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the Sales Eye use case is absolutely transformational there in terms of the kind of difference that it can make for customers. I would also highlight that generative AI is really useful in those high volume places as well, where you're sort of bouncing around between customers, and it's hard for you as the rep to actually keep the context of, what did I discuss with this customer versus that customer together. The combination of those two things, I think, is really huge. And one of the areas that we're going to be investing in going forward is bringing some of the generative capabilities that we've already got inside of the Sugar platform over to Sales Eye as well. So you're going to see like a really cool merging of the technology going forward, all to drive those outcomes and make it easier for people to understand, like, what do I do with this information that's being provided to me, and how do I turn that into value?
That's awesome.
I have Sugar Enterprise on-prem. Will this be available to me? I'm assuming they were referring to the free trial.
Yeah, so today, the trial that we have is for customers who are deployed inside of the Sugar Cloud. However, the technology that we built in a way that we hope to be able to bring the generative capabilities to our on-premise customers in the future. It's not something that we have an exact timeline kind of locked in for at this particular moment in time. But we're hopeful that over the course of the next year or so, that this technology is going to find itself available to our on-premise customers. The Sales Eye technology is available today for customers who are running on-premise. Sales Eye itself does run in the cloud, but you have the ability to connect into your on-premise instance in order to deliver that value there today. So definitely, we very much value our clients who are running in on-premise environments, and our goal is to be able to bring as much of the innovation that we're delivering in our cloud to you in your on-premise environments as well, whether that is directly on-premise or whether that is in a cloud-connected capacity. Those are things that are really important to us.
Great. What kind of training is required for a successful adoption?
That's a great question. I feel like this is one of those things that there's different lenses that you probably want to think about when you're considering it. Obviously, you want to do some introductory kind of training just to tell people what kind of functionality you're making available inside of your Sugar instance to your user base. There's a whole lot of, I think, seeing is believing, especially with some of the generative capabilities that we were talking about earlier. But training managers around the insight that's provided and sort of what some of the useful information that kind of drives value in the responses is useful, because then when they're working with their user base, they can help them in order to sort of like drive the behavior that you want, whether that is through installing Connect and configuring out synchronization rules or those kinds of things that sort of push the data in the places that you actually want. I would say also that IT probably needs some training as well, to highlight some of the great security capabilities that we bring, and why we think this is a good solution for addressing their concerns and getting them on board. And those conversations are really critical, because they can kind of turn the department of no into a department of business enablers, right? And IT, I think, is always looking for things that can put them in that sort of lens of, hey, I'm helping the business to go out and achieve the goals that they're trying to achieve. So there's some real good wins that you can give for your IT department from a training perspective here as well. Dan, is there stuff you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, from my perspective, I think, like you said, right, looking at it through different lenses, I think it can vary a little bit. Things like the generative capabilities that are pretty easy and intuitive, again, to understand. Something like a sales manager like me that's going to have 50 questions about how I want to slice and dice my data, it's going to take a little bit more training for me to get up to speed and where to go find that exactly and have those built out. But again, a lot of those things that I found were just kind of naturally presented to me. I didn't really have to kind of go out and seek them. They were kind of more brought forward in a pretty intuitive fashion. So I think it depends on the type of thing that you're investing in and looking at. But a lot of the things, again, are just kind of naturally intuitive, especially if you're talking about from the end user perspective.
That's the goal. I mean, we're definitely trying to make things as intuitive as possible coming out of the box. So I'm glad to hear that that's your experience. Thanks, Dan.
Absolutely.
Looks like we have one more question, and it's, our customers are starting to expect more personalized interactions. How can AI help keep up, especially when we're competing with bigger players?
I think from our perspective, I mean, look, being able to really deeply understand your customer, for me as, a salesperson all my life, having that empathy for what their situation is. And if you don't know that, or have to spend a ton of time to go and get it, I don't think you're really ever going to be able to have that authentic of a conversation with them. So combining, purchase data, purchase history, understanding where they've been going, but then individually, how have they been communicating with you, maybe the previous person that had the account or was working the opportunities, or maybe they were communicating directly with your CEO or other leadership team. Understanding how all of those things interact together, I think, really allows you to, again, have that authentic conversation and be able to compete with folks that may have 10 times the sales force, that or administrative staff to be able to go in and surface those insights for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, how do smaller companies compete? They compete on service, right? They're able to understand their customers better and deliver better service. And they compete on agility, right? They're able to ingest what they're learning from their customers and do something with that quicker than those larger behemoths. And so they're able to be more nimble. And I think AI is uniquely poised to help with that. Again, we have all of this information. We've all been curating data and information inside of our businesses for years. AI can really turn that into valuable, useful, insightful information that can enable you to sit down and have conversations that are more effective with your customers and highlight things that you might otherwise have missed.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, Zach. And like, for all, again, working with salespeople, with getting information into the CRM, as we've done a better and better job of getting that in an automated fashion and asking for that information. So I feel like this is finally the answer to, again, why we should all work on getting everything in there, is because now we can get those insights out no matter who the user is too.
Yep.
All right. So I think that's all the questions that we have for today. So really appreciate everyone taking the time out of their schedule to join us today. As a friendly reminder, we will be following up with you immediately after the session to help schedule your free 30-day trial and to help offer some white glove support and client-specific recommendations. On behalf of Faye and all of our presenters, thank you again for joining us and have a great rest of your day.